Welcome back to day three, everyone. And of course, today we've been talking about, aligning and operating the cognitive, emotional, physical aspects of that new identity, that new personality that we began to open up to way back in day one, 2 days ago, and then actually began to implement through disciplined practice all of the tools that allow us to really step into day three. And I'm super excited about my next guest, Kristen Alexis. She's a transformational mindset coach. And she's going to be talking about healing trauma and aligning to higher purpose. And this really is, as we get to this point of embodiment, really embodying kind of a higher version of us, or a more peak performing version of us, then it really becomes about, aligning to and stepping into and being able to offer that purpose. So I'm super excited, so grateful to have you here, Kristen, and just hear your words of wisdom, your zone of genius around how people can really move through these traumas more fully and step into that higher purpose. So welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here. So hi, everyone. My name is Kristen Alexis, and I am a trauma-informed somatic coach, which means that I work primarily with our nervous system and with our sensorial experience. And it means that I help people to heal from trauma that gets stored or trapped inside the physical body, right? So today we're going to dive into how trauma that gets stored inside the physical body essentially blocks us from reaching our higher purpose and how we can begin to alleviate that. So first, I kind of want to just talk a little bit about like what is trauma so that we can get a deeper understanding. And I won't get too technical. I'll try to keep it as light and fun as possible. But essentially, trauma is the body's stress responses to events or situations that it perceives as highly threatening or dangerous. And so it's the way that our nervous system responds to a perceived threat in essence, right? And our nervous system can respond in four particular ways. It can respond with a fight response, a flight response, a freeze response, or a fawn response, right? So those are the four responses or for stress or trauma responses that we can have when our nervous system perceives a particular situation to be dangerous. And now what often happens is that there are two different types of trauma. There's like what I like to call big T trauma, and then there's like small T trauma, right? And we can like, let's say, identify these two as like acute. So something that is acute, it happens once, it's a big, huge event, let's say like a car crash, somebody dies, a divorce, this sort of thing could be acute. It happens once in your life and it's a huge event and it changes your life forever, right? Or little T trauma could be small criticisms or small, let's say, not so pleasant experiences that happen over time, and we can call that chronic, right? Because it's just like constant, right? So a common constant that some people have in their life is stress around finances, right? And we may not necessarily see that as trauma, but it is, because it activates the nervous system into the sympathetic fight, flight, freeze, fawn responses. And what it does is it actually shakes our core with our sense of safety and stability, which is actually what we need to be able to make higher level decisions, right? And so when we're not feeling safe or stable, we kind of are operating from this place of agitation, inner agitation, and we're not always making the best decisions for ourselves, right? And so what we want to do is that we want to understand, like, when we have trauma that's unprocessed and we are living in a dysregulated or sympathetic state within our nervous system, it's almost impossible to get to the place where we start to align ourselves with higher purpose, because we're so like accustomed just looking at what's right in front of us, that we can't like make decisions that are in our highest good for the future, right? And when we make decisions also from a sympathetic state, what we're usually doing as well is making decisions that essentially keep us a bit safe, right? Because that's what the nervous system is trying to do, is trying to protect us. So we're making decisions that we believe will keep us safe, but won't necessarily add to our thriving.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the barriers that sometimes happen. So when we are living in this like fight, flight, freeze, fawn, which is again the body's stress responses, it creates a barrier for us, right, internally. So of course, not a physical barrier, but internally a barrier where we are so overwhelmed by our own fear, our own limiting beliefs, so stuck in reactivity that we can't even begin to practice what I like to call the art of surrender, right? And the art of surrender is actually really important for us to get to the higher purpose, because what you think you want may not necessarily be what you need,
Mm-hmm.
and it may not necessarily be what's in the service, your best service of your highest self, and also the service to others that you want to provide, right? And so we want to understand that like practicing surrender means not giving up. What it means is like I'm open to possibility. I'm open to all of the possibilities that could exist, even possibilities that I haven't mentally conceptualized as yet, that I haven't seen because of my own limitations. But if I'm open, then anything can happen. I can get to my goal, achieve my dream in many different ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when we can't practice the art of surrender, we also aren't able to access our ability to trust the unfolding of our lives, because we're so holding on to this control of like, this is how it has to be, right? And when it doesn't work out in the way that like it has to be, right, we start to essentially spiral. And so what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to access our own intuitive wisdom. We want to be able to trust our gut. And the only way to do that is to be in a regulated space, is to be open to possibility, right? And also to start to practice a little bit of self-awareness and quiet time with ourselves so that we could really hear what's happening in our inner world, which is why practices like meditation are so important, right? So that we could actually start to, or even somatic therapy, where we could start to process like what's actually happening in my inner world, right? And once I know what's happening in the inner world and in the inner landscape, then I can begin to change it. But we are so sometimes outwardly focused that we can't access this part of us, which blocks us from making choices that are highly aligned with the version of ourselves that we want to be and with the legacy that we want to leave behind.
Mm-hmm. So how does someone, if you're new to this, how does somebody get past the kind of the triggered reaction of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn to actually come to that space of, okay, like I know this is happening outside of me. I'm going to go within, I'm going to be present to it, and I'm going to start to, regulate my nervous system. How does somebody get to that point?
Yeah, so I think there are many different avenues to get to that point, right? I think the first one is self-awareness, right? If we're not aware of any of what's going on with us, how we are feeling, our emotions, we can't make a change, right? So really doing some self-awareness work, just checking in with yourself every day. I have a practice that I start all clients on when they come to me, which is just spend 2 minutes a day asking yourself, how am I feeling and what do I need?
Mm.
How am I feeling and what do I need? And try to name the emotions, right? So try to name it, say like, I'm feeling stressed, I'm feeling frustrated, I'm feeling tired, right? And then asking yourself like, what do I need now? So now that I know what I'm feeling, like, what is it that I really need? Do I need a nap? Do I need to drink more water? Do I need to tell this person I cannot meet with them today? Like, what is it that I need to take care of myself? Right? So bringing that level of self-awareness and those like daily check-ins is the first step to actually making a change. And then something else that we can do that's very simple that I love to practice on my own, but also I tell clients to practice all the time, is the practice of box breathing. The reason for this is because box breathing really helps us to get into a parasympathetic, rest and digest state in the body and in the nervous system. And you cannot heal anything if you have a dysregulated nervous system. You can only begin to heal through the parasympathetic or through the rest and digest space within the nervous system. And so practices like box breathing, even just 5 minutes a day, is more important than trying to do 20 minutes, an hour every few days, right? That consistent practice of 5 minutes a day makes the world of a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. That discipline practice. And that takes us back to day two, right? Of really, I look at it as kind of putting together the pieces of our own puzzle. And so like breath work, meditation, healthy eating, like these are all pieces that will optimize how I'm feeling. And if I practice those things on a day in and day out basis, then I'm going to really be able to step into, this new version of myself. And so I'd love for you to speak to the higher purpose component. How does one actually align to their higher purpose? Like, because for me, I know it took a really long time to really decipher, like, what am I here to do? So I would love if you have any tips for people that are kind of at that point now of, how do I recognize what that is, and then how do I step into actually bringing that into the world?
Yeah. So I have a bit of like maybe a controversial, like sort of,
Perfect.
sort of concept around this, which I believe there's no higher purpose. This is what I truly believe, that there's no like one higher purpose, right? That our higher purpose as human beings is just to be the most you that you could be. Like the most authentic expression of yourself, that's the higher purpose, right? And to commit yourself to something that you're really, really, really passionate about. Just commit yourself to something that you love, that you feel passionate about, that gives you the desire to want to serve others, right? And that allows you to be yourself. For me, that's what really encompasses like higher purpose, something that I'm super passionate about, something that allows me to be my full authentic self, where I could bring all of me to the table, and something that is in service to others. And once we have those three elements together, like that thing, whatever it might be, is your higher purpose, right? It's not rocket science. It's not something that we have to now try to figure out again and wrap our minds around and go again to chase it, because then we will get trapped into hustle culture of trying to find the higher purpose.
So name the three things again.
So 3 things, which is something that you're super passionate about or that you love, something that is in service to others, and something that allows you to be the most authentic expression of yourself.
So beautiful, so beautiful. And I love that it's super simple, and I think all of the most amazing things are, it's our human way to overcomplicate everything. And it's like, shouldn't be complicated. It should just be super easy, super simple. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
So is there anything else that you want to share with regards to this? Anything else kind of coming through for you in the moment that people should just absolutely know?
Good question. I'm just gonna like tune in and see if there's any like guidance that wants to come through.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. I think the one thing that I help clients do a lot is to live life on their own terms. And one thing that I always tell them is like, live your life for you. And by serving your highest good, like by doing things that make you happy, doing things that make you feel fulfilled, doing things that light you up, just in doing that, you will serve everybody else around you. Like everybody else around you will benefit when you are showing up as the most joyful, healthiest, abundant, open version of yourself. Right.
Mm,
And it may not seem like this in the beginning because we create a dance with every single person that we interact with. We create this like relationship dance. And when that dance has become so locked in to habits and sort of what is expected from you, when you begin to change the dance, people are going to be triggered. Right? People are going to say, you've changed, you're this, whatever, right? And they're gonna get a little bit anxious in their own selves, but just realize that like you're not responsible for anybody else's experience. You're responsible for your own experience. And by committing to your own evolution and growth as a human being, you will eventually end up serving every single person that you really love and that who really loves you, even if in the beginning it's very hard for them to grasp. And this is something that like I know from personal experience, like when I went on my own journey and I decided to tell my parents like, hey, guess what, I did my thesis, I'm happy, I don't think I need any more of university, I'm just going to just drop out now without the piece of paper. They were like, excuse me. Right. And when I started my businesses and I started traveling the world again, my family was like, what are you doing with your life? Like, what is going on? My partner at the time when I started shifting and changing was like really upset with me. He was like, what is going on? Like, you've changed so much, da, 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 da. And I just kept going. And now, like, my family totally gets it. And they're like, you're the happiest we've ever seen you, which has improved all of our relationships, all of
mm,
our interactions, right? Where we were snappy with each other before, we're not. We're full of love, we're full of joy, we're full of connection, we're full of gratitude, right? And it's because I changed the way that I was showing up. And my partner, that relationship didn't work out, but now we're like really good friends. Like we're best of friends, right?
mm,
Like we can talk. Like he calls me for advice now because he's like, you are living your best life. Like I need to figure out how to get there, right? And so like it just works out for every single person when you take care of you.
mm. I love that. And I love what you said about do what lights you up, and that light will light up the world, and um, yeah, it's so, so good. So much good stuff here. I just have one more question for you, and I've been asking everyone this, and I'm loving the answers because everybody's got their own perspective, and their own perspective on what does peak performance mean to you?
Yeah, it's a good question. Peak performance for me is when I can do things in a way that actually feels easy for me. And when I can do things and accomplish all of the things that I want to accomplish in a way that feels easy, smooth, um, expansive, and when it's also done with the least effort, right, that I can put in. And this for me is really important because I like a lot of freedom and a lot of spaciousness. Like I like that I have days where I just get to make up the day as I go along. So for example, I haven't worked at all this week, but for the next 2 days, today and tomorrow, I will be totally engulfed in client meetings. And the reason for that is because I prefer to only work 2 days a week, really like show up, really hammer it out, like be fully present, be efficient, and then have the rest of time to relax. And so for me, it's like, how can we do things in the most efficient way possible, in the easiest way possible, and with the least amount of effort?
Mm-hmm. So good. Perfect. Perfect. Well said. Well said. Thank you so much. And for our viewers out there, it really is, this idea of bringing peak performance into every area of your life. It's an opportunity to step into a peak existence, and I love that you shared, Kristen, about, it shouldn't it shouldn't be difficult. It doesn't have to be hard, in fact, if it is hard, if it is difficult, then chances are you're coming up against some resistance, and that resistance is happening for you to make a choice to go in a different direction that is, has less resistance and is much easier for you, and there's much more flow. So I just want to thank you so much for taking the time. It was such an honor for me to have you here, and I'm really grateful for you and everything that you're bringing into the world and how you're supporting others in their journey and how you're showing up. How can people find you, get a hold of you, share anything that you're up to, that you're offering right now? Um, yeah,
Yeah, the best place to find me is on Instagram. That is the best place to find me is on Instagram. I do have a website, and so it's somaticembodimentwithkristen.com. But the best place to like actually engage with me, to talk to me, is on my Instagram, with it's just my name, Kristen A.G. Alexis. And so yeah, I will see y'all on Instagram.
beautiful. And we'll have links and everything to your work. And so thanks again all, and stay tuned. We've got lots more coming up in our final day of Unleash Yourself, redefining peak performance.